Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching World Today. Now, tensions between India and Pakistan is at its highest as India prepares its civilians with mock drills for preparedness against any untoward situation. Pakistani army delegation's Nepal visit at this point has sparked debate in Kathmandu. A 12-member delegation of the Pakistani army is currently in Nepal on a 6-day study tour. This was pre-scheduled. Nepal's House of Representatives raised questions about the visit, saying what type of message is the Nepal government conveying by inviting Pakistani army delegation as the two subcontinent neighbors are on the brink of war. This further isolates Pakistan after it was snubbed at the UNSC meeting on Monday.
At the United Nations Security Council, in a closed-door meeting, Pakistan was isolated, questioned and asked to restrain. As a non-permanent member serving in UNSC, Pakistan initiated the close consultation to discuss rising tensions between India and Pakistan after the Pahalgam terror attack of 22nd April. But things did not work out as it might have expected.
Pakistan came to the council with a message of peace, not provocation. But peace does not happen in vacuum. It demands responsibility and respect for the rules that govern our world. While Pakistan does not seek confrontation, we are fully prepared to defend our sovereignty and territorial integrity.
India is currently not part of the UNSC, and so it wasn't present in the meeting. With Greece presiding, other members of UNSC questioned Pakistan about the religious target killing in Pahalgam. Pakistan was also asked about the involvement of LET in Pahalgam attack. The terror group recognized by the UN as an international terrorist organization is under Islamabad's state patronage. The UN members questioned Pakistan's false flags like escalation of the nuclear rhetoric and carrying out missile launches. In response, Pakistan blamed India for provocation, calling abeyance of Indus Water Agreement as aggression.
We raised alarm over India's unilateral suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty, a legally binding accord brokered by the World Bank and upheld during wars. Water is life, not a weapon. These rivers sustain over 240 million Pakistanis. Any attempt to disrupt their flow constitutes aggression, and allowing such a precedent would endanger every lower riparian state.
Though most members support India in its fight against terror, it would have been difficult to stop Pakistan with its all-weather ally China sitting in the council with veto power of the permanent member.
I am quite confident that the council will not pass a resolution criticizing Pakistan because China will veto it. They will not pass a resolution criticizing us because many countries will object to it and probably veto it. So it is going to be more a call for peace and concern about terror and general kind of language. I'm not expecting anything specifically out of the council.
India continues to receive support from different countries. On Tuesday, the Emir of Qatar on phone with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed his solidarity and support. On Monday, Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke to the Indian Prime Minister over the phone and reiterated Russian support for India's war against terror, and so did the Trump administration.
India has to stand against terrorism there as well. We'll do everything we can in the U.S. to support those efforts. The Trump administration clearly understands the importance of that relationship. I think you'll see the administration. My belief is that they will focus more energy and resources and time to help assist with that. That's certainly our hope.
Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister had a telephone conversation with the acting Foreign Minister of Afghanistan, Amir Khan Muttaqi. Though he briefed the acting Afghan Foreign Minister on Pakistan's stand on Pahalgam terror attack, he couldn't elicit support from Kabul. Afghanistan has already pledged its support for India in this war against terror, further isolating Pakistan within the region. Bureau Report, India Today.
And if there's one man who really understands how the United Nations Security Council works, served there as Indian envoy to the UN, it is Ambassador Akbaruddin. Ambassador Akbaruddin, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today. Now, let's just begin with what happened at the United Nations Security Council, and then we'll go back to what it is and how can India really deal with Pakistan and Pakistan terror emanating from Pakistan. Now, at the United Nations Security Council, not for the first time that India and India's allies have taken up the matter, but this time around, it was Pakistan as a non-permanent member that went to the United Nations Security Council. If you could explain how this entire system really works and what really happened.
So, Geeta, usually the United Nations Security Council is functional around the year. What they usually do is they meet informally in what they call close consultations virtually every day. And if they have something of a nature which is ready to be formalized, they then meet in a formal session on the horseshoe table. Otherwise, they meet in the antechamber. It's a small room. It's not the main Security Council room. There, they meet informally. So there is no record kept for everybody to know who said what. Also, the number of people who meet there is very limited because each delegation has maybe 2 people there, etc. It's a small place where they meet, consider things informally, and if they have something to offer in a more formal sense, they then either have it as part of a formal meeting or the president of the Security Council, after the discussion, comes out and in an oral statement to the press, indicates that this was the outcome of the discussion. Now, Pakistan, as you know, always tries to grandstand at multilateral forums. The idea is to try and use these fora as forums of not serious diplomacy, but public diplomacy. And that's primarily geared towards their domestic audience. So the events of the last few days seem to have panned out that Pakistan, thinking that it's a member of the Security Council, a non-permanent member for 2 years, could try and get an outcome, perhaps at a very low level, through the informal consultation process, asked for a meeting. Generally, these meetings, nobody refuses because every member has a right to bring to the table its concerns about itself or about any other country. So the meeting was scheduled for yesterday evening, New York time. What usually happens in such a meeting is that the chair, in this case it was Greece, asks whoever wants to raise a subject, raise it, and then goes around the table with everybody else indicating what their views are and whether they would be supportive of a outcome from this meeting or not. And that's what happened. Pakistan is on record of having said that it will raise the nuclear bogey, it will raise issues of the Indus Water Treaty, as well as this talk about false flag, etc., etc. And they raised that yesterday. What followed was a deafening silence from the collectivity of the Security Council. And that's a clear signal that Pakistan did not find any takers for its view. There ended the meeting. That ends the issue for now.
Right. Right. We have, Ambassador Akbaruddin, seen the modus operanda of Pakistan in the past. They would hit out at military officials, military camps, and military troops. But this time around, the entire play is very different. You have been serving when the Pulwama attack happened, Uri happened, but this time around they've targeted tourists, and there was a religious angle to it also, where they asked the religion before shooting the tourists down. In such a scenario, what do you see and how do you see this entire issue really play out, and Pakistan being isolated this time around, unlike the kind of support Pakistan used to get in the past from its allies?
So you're right. This was a very egregious and dastardly act. not seen in recent years, trying to bifurcate individuals on the basis of their community, etc., clearly aimed at creating dissension within India. Having said that, you've seen that everybody is critical and condemns the act. The issue is only what next to do. So there is a global consensus, and that came out even in the Security Council, a statement condemning the act. While the statement is not to our full satisfaction, but that there is a condemnation by members of the UN Security Council and other members of the global community, there is no doubt about. The challenge comes in translating that into further action, and that's where a suboptimal situation will never be able to fulfill our needs, even if Pakistan is isolated on this. The challenge is, how do you take the next step in ensuring that such acts go beyond condemnation? At the present stage, given the system of global governance we have, let's not expect more from that thing. We are grateful that people have supported us. Anything else that has to be done will have to be done by India in self-defense. There are, under international law, norms which allow, including through the UN Charter, Article 51, which says in self-defense, you can take action. And perhaps that's what is being looked at our leadership right now, rather than seeking a global effort at isolation, etc., because these are uncertain times. The costs and benefits of those efforts are difficult to assess. So it's now increasingly a world where states have to be their own decision makers and take appropriate action as they feel.
Right. Right. Ambassador Akbaruddin, the fact is that that Pakistan is a non-permanent member of the UNSC this time around. But even in the past, when they were not in the room, there was one country that actually always supported it. This time around, that country is silent. And we've seen that they've spoken in the past and ensured that there's no action that takes place against Rawalpindi. And I say Rawalpindi, not Islamabad, and that is China. But this kind of support that we see from China coming in for Pakistan, irrespective of what Pakistan is doing or has done, what's your reading on how that has changed or could change geopolitics, not just of the region, but also of the world?
So let's start by acknowledging that multilateral platforms are playgrounds of geopolitics, because you have a conglomeration of 190 plus states, and those who have common interests converge. Having said that, there are ways to handle these things, but there are ways which demand an enormous amount of effort. So while, as you said, China always comes out in support of Pakistan. But there have been cases, for example, when we were able to get the designation of Masood Azhar as a global terrorist. China, for several years, blocked us. For several years, vetoed proposals in that regard. But there were pathways that were available to us in the final instance, where we raised the bar so high that even China found it difficult to pay the price of that support. So states can raise the bar, but you can't do it on every occasion. Those will be rare occasions where you make it so difficult for even a permanent member to not be able to support its favored country. That happened once. It can happen again. But right now, given the divergences in the global order, it may be more difficult than what it was possible before.
Ambassador Syed Akbaruddin, thank you so much for joining us here on the network. We'll maybe keep coming back to you for more on the perspective as to how India should take on Pakistan, if not militarily, diplomatically for sure. Now, Pakistan is all set to increase its defense spending by 18% amid rising tensions with India over the 22nd April Pahalgam terror attack. Cash-strapped Pakistan has endorsed an 18% hike in defense spending to over rupees 2.5 trillion in the 2025-26 budget. Pakistan's coalition government has endorsed it and is all geared up to unveil this increased defense allocation in the next budget in the first week of next month, ahead of the start of the new fiscal year from July 1st. Media reported that Pakistan's People's Party delegation led by its chief Bilawal Bhutto Zardari met with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and his economic team to discuss the budget matters. PMLN-led government shared roughly rupees 17.5 trillion worth of new budget framework with its key ally, the PPP, which agreed to 18% increase in the defense outlay. Now, as India and Pakistan flex their muscle across the border, the world is hoping that the two nuclear powers will stop short of an outright war. However, if the conflict were to escalate further, the price of a war may be too high for Pakistan. While the establishment in Islamabad, or Rawalpindi particularly, is flexing muscles, testing missiles, analysts at Moody's remind them that the exchequer doesn't have the money for a war with India. Economy will be the biggest collateral damage in a war for both the countries.
One of the lifelines of Pakistan is already on the brink. The mighty Chenab is running dry after India suspended the Indus Waters Treaty and shut the sluice gates of several dams. And Pakistan is already crying hoarse, warning of a severe impact on the sowing of both the early and late Kharif crops. This could just be the beginning of the economic meltdown Pakistan is likely to face in the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack. India and Pakistan share history. Yet when it comes to economic strength, the contrast is massive. As tensions between the two neighbors escalate, it is Pakistan which finds itself cornered. Numbers paint a stark picture. India's economy, the world's fourth largest by nominal GDP, stands at approximately $4.2 trillion. In contrast, Pakistan's economy is valued at around $375 billion, making India's economy over 11 times larger than Pakistan's. India maintains a steady growth rate of 6.4%, with inflation at a manageable 3.34%. Pakistan, however, is recovering from a contraction, posting a modest 2.5% growth while grappling with inflation rates which hit 30% last year. Foreign reserves further highlight the disparity. India's reserves are robust, while Pakistan's have fluctuated, dipping to $4.1 billion in June 2023 before recovering to $15 billion in April. Pakistan's external debt stands at $131 billion with significant obligations to China, the IMF and other creditors. The debt is a whopping 35% of its GDP. Pakistan's economy is heavily reliant on foreign aid and remittances. The IMF's $7 billion bailout is crucial for its financial stability. The multilateral body is to meet on the 9th of May to review loans to Pakistan and approve a $1.3 billion installment to Pakistan, a step being opposed by India. Any geopolitical instability could jeopardize these lifelines, amplifying economic vulnerabilities. India's suspension of trade, meanwhile, will not hit Islamabad directly. Pakistan's exports to India in the first 10 months of financial year 2025 were just $420,000. It was indirect exports through intermediary nations which mattered. Products including dry fruits and chemicals valued at $500 million. This route stands blocked as well. A recent report by Moody's put things in perspective. Sustained escalation in tensions with India will hamper Pakistan's growth and set back its progress in achieving macroeconomic stability, is what the report said. It added that a persistent increase in tensions could also impair Pakistan's access to external financing and pressure its foreign exchange reserves. Given these economic realities, Pakistan faces significant challenges in sustaining any prolonged conflict. Its economic vulnerabilities, dependence on foreign aid, and infrastructural constraints suggest that war is not a feasible option without severe repercussions. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
The Israeli military carried out an airstrike on Yemen's main airport in Sana'a on Tuesday. This is the second attack in 2 days on Iran-aligned Houthi rebels after a surge in tensions between the group and Israel. 3 people were killed in the strike, according to Houthi-run Al Masirah TV. Israel warned people to leave the area around Sana'a International Airport before Tuesday's attack. Netanyahu claimed that it targeted Houthi infrastructure and fully disabled the airport. Witnesses later reported 4 strikes in the capital. Not only at Yemen, Israel has planned to expand its Gaza offensive, displace people within the enclave and take control of aid distribution. This has horrified the UN and Gazans as well.
Last night we stayed up late in the cabinet and decided on an intensified operation in Gaza. One thing must be clear, they will not get in and out. We will call up reserves to take over territory, then leave the territory and then carry out raids from what remains. That's not the plan. This is not our intention. The intention is the opposite.
Okay.
The Israeli cabinet ministers approved the plan in an early morning vote. By then, the Israeli military chief instructed the army to call up tens of thousands of reserve soldiers. Army vehicles were on the move in southern Israel, close to the Gaza border. The United Nations expressed alarm at Israel's Gaza plans.
The Secretary General is alarmed by these reports of Israeli plans to expand ground operations and prolong its military presence in Gaza. This will inevitably lead to countless more civilians killed and the further destruction of Gaza. What's imperative now is an end to the violence, not more civilian deaths and destruction. Gaza is and must remain an integral part of a future Palestinian state.
Thousands of Palestinians now need to move to South Gaza. In other words, it would likely amount to the forcible displacement and worsen an already dire humanitarian crisis. Since a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas collapsed in mid-March, Israel has unleashed strikes on the territory that have killed hundreds, capturing and now controlling roughly 50% of Gaza. Before the truce ended, Israel halted all humanitarian aid into Gaza, including food, fuel and water. This has caused the worst humanitarian crisis in nearly 19 months of war.
The situation here is extremely difficult. The children are exhausted from hunger and we adults can't even walk in the streets.
The US president is a close ally of Israel. Besides, since coming back to power for the second time, he has hinted at ambitious plan of building a Riviera in Gaza. Now Israel plans to seize Gaza and Donald Trump promises food for the displaced people of enclave.
Trump Gaza is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright. Golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, #1.
We're going to help the people of Gaza get some food. People are starving, and we're going to help them get some food. A lot of people are making it very, very bad. If you look, Hamas is making it impossible because they're taking everything that's brought in. But we're going to help the people of Gaza.
On Tuesday, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs rejected a plan by Israeli authorities to shut down the existing aid system in Gaza. Details of Netanyahu's Gaza cease plan were not formally announced, and its exact timing and implementation also remains unclear. But this has worsened the situation in Gaza, already battered and bruised beyond recognition in 19 months of Israel-Hamas war. Israeli hostages still remain in captivity with Hamas, while any possibility of a ceasefire slips further away. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
A Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, won the job with a promise to confront the increased aggression shown by the US President Donald Trump. Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, arrived at the White House on Tuesday for a high-stakes meeting with President Donald Trump. Trump has shattered a decades-old alliance by saying he wants to make Canada the 51st state of United States of America and levied steep tariffs against an essential partner in the manufacturing of autos and supply of oil, electricity and other goods. The outrage provoked by Trump enabled Carney's Liberal Party to score a stunning comeback victory as the ongoing trade war and attacks on Canadian sovereignty have outraged voters. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of World Today, but we leave you with this dazzling, dapper looks Indian men donned at the Met Gala. The King Khan officially arrived at Met Gala and he chose the grandest stage in global fashion to make his move with his signature charm, unbeatable aura and a style statement that screamed royalty. Shah Rukh Khan made his debut at Met Gala 2025. Dressed in an all-black custom ensemble by Indian designer Sabyasachi, King Khan embraced the event's prestige with a unique blend of cultural heritage and personal symbolism. Another Indian celebrity, Diljit Dosanjh, made a memorable debut at Met Gala 2025 wearing a custom white Sikh royal ensemble by designer Prabal Gurung. His look, complete with the turban and ceremonial sword, paid tribute to his Punjabi heritage. Both of them looked truly dazzling and ruled the Met Gala for India. With that, it's a wrap. Goodbye and take care.